As we're here, of course, in day 2, or for the second day of the
regional championship.
Regional championship. You know, I'm gonna get tripped up eventually. I am Ben Cuckoo Kiriakou, joined here by the wonderful Charlie Merryman.
Yeah, there's only one way of saying it. You see, it's already catching on. The more you say Cuckoo Kiriakou, the more we're going to love it. Trainers. Don't know if you've heard of the kids' TV show back in the day, Art Attack, but that's what we've got going on here with Alexis. Lovely Alexis has been here in the venue drawing fantastic pictures for us. Look at that.
So good.
We've got Simon's favourite Beware up here. You've got the Kanto starters, including Pikachu. Bit of Vine Whip action going on there from the Bulbasaur. Very cool. I love the bold colours there. And we're just having a chill Sunday time.
Say, I do love the way that they're depicted. I mean, they don't have a border. It's just the shape and the colour of the Pokemon, and then their details coloured in is really, really nice.
It's really bold.
Do you want to come and say hi to everyone, Alexis? Do you want to say hello? Here she is.
Here is the artist herself, Alexis. Thank you so much, Alexis, for these. I hope you're feeling proud of your drawing. Yeah, there we go. Because we also have this lovely picture of a Pokeball catching a Caterpie there. Going to become a good friend. I love Caterpie. Caterpie's good. Now, remind us, what's your favourite Pokemon, Alexis?
Cinderace.
Cinderace.
There you go, Cinderace.
Yeah. But just because. There's no particular reason, right? No, it's a fun Pokemon. It's fun. Thank you so much, Alexis. Yes, Cinderace is a great one, and thank you for this art. We're going to frame it. We're going to get it on our walls. Thanks, Alexis. All right.
Well
now, from the art of illustration to the art of Pokemon battling, let's go over to the stage where we have Kylian Duquesne of the Netherlands up against Joris Bongers. And look at these teams. They're certainly a far cry from some of the balance we've seen at this stage in Regulation Set F. Got Hatterene over on Joris's side, as well as the Indeedee Iron Crown for Kylian. Indeedee Iron Crown is the play style that Kylian has favoured throughout Regulations at F and has had some fantastic finishes with that as well. I believe at least one top 16 finish in an EU regional that we've had so far this season. So Kylian really, hopefully by now, getting close to that World's Invite and here in Lanaken to try and seal it up.
Seeing what the progress is of these Indeedee Iron Crown teams as we've gone through the format is a really, really special thing because, you know, you start off with people know that Indeedee paired with an Iron Crown and Expanding Force is going to be strong, but you just don't quite know the pieces that it needs to sort of hold it up and support that pairing, or maybe to be used when Indeedee Iron Crown is not necessarily the pick that you want to take to your game. And yeah, here we are right at the tail end of Regulation Set F with Ogerpon, Wellspring, Tornadus, Landorus, Urshifu. That is going to be the single strike rather than the rapid strike. And Joris on the other side of the field has a rapid strike Urshifu. So the two forms of it facing off against each other, but also the two forms of Expanding Force facing off against each other, with Hatterene being the other Pokemon, certainly a more Trick Room orientated team on Joris's side there, but still having the opportunity to go a little bit more speedy. Fluttermane, the booster energy, no icy wind or anything like that, no sort of speed control, but probably boosting out the power of those moves. And Urshifu Rapid Strike carrying the Mystic Water as well. Worth noting that the Hatterene is carrying the Clear Amulet rather than the Life Orb in this particular match-up. Clear Amulet, as we said earlier, has been the item of choice this weekend, but there isn't an Incineroar or anything like that over on Kylian's side, so Clear Amulet might not be putting in quite the work that it could do in this particular game, but let's get going. There is that classic Indeedee Iron Crown lead over on Kylian's side, and Indeedee and Hatterene for Joris. So we've got Trick Room mind games aplenty, Ben. That seems to be one of the themes of the weekend. Lots of Trick Room going on here, yeah, lots of potential 3 Pokemon on the field right now that can click that particular button. The question is how many of them do? If it's 0 or 2, Trick Room doesn't go up. If it's 1 or 3, then Trick Room does go up. And I mean, I don't think I've ever seen in my VGC career 3 Trick Rooms going up on the same turn, but I'm sure it's possible.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a first time for everything here, but definitely. I think Joris on in terms of his goals and his team compositions, it really does lend itself to trying to get the Trick Room up, whether that's going to be Kylian doing it for him, trying to prevent the Trick Room, or Joris actually getting the first Trick Room up. We'll have to see.
Here we go, Helping Hand. You would have seen the Focus Blast being hovered over there. That is a move that this Iron Crown has access to. What is going to be the massive move of choice? It's just going to be the Expanding Force, what Iron Crown does best, onto both of these Psychic-type Pokemon, but look at that. You wouldn't have expected that to be not very effective damage.
Big damage.
Huge damage thanks to that Helping Hand coming out. That's Hatterene twisting the dimensions, and Trick Room is staying up.
And Indeedee and Hatterene have taken a lot of damage for their troubles, but Kylian, of course, hasn't taken any damage this turn, and that really carries on these Trick Room mind games where Kylian may be in a position where if he's able to get a knockout on either of these Trick Room setters and then use Trick Room himself, would be able to get himself into a more favourable board state, but instead Hatterene protecting itself, a little bit of chip damage coming out from Dazzling Gleam on Indeedee. Maybe Kylian hoping that Joris would over-predict and maybe undo the Trick Room, but instead getting the knockout with that Expanding Force.
Well, there you go, Indeedee reversing the Trick Room there as well, so Kylian gets a huge amount out of that turn as a Dazzling Gleam just providing a little bit of chip. And for Joris' side of the field, that damage was bonkers coming out from turn 1. And that Hatterene is really, really dwindled now. It is still in that, well, no, it's no longer in that Trick Room environment too. So and on such low health, going to be a struggle for Joris to set that up once more. And I doubt that Kylian will be kind enough to do that for him. So Iron Crown is looking incredibly threatening right now, still in that Psychic terrain. It's not like there is a Rillaboom or anything lurking in the back for either of these trainers. So that Psychic terrain is going to remain on the field as long as there is an Indeedee willing to switch in from the back.
It's all about the Pokemon in the back for Joris, and Amoonguss being one of them is probably not
great.
One that you'd be wanting to see in this situation. If it was a single strike Urshifu, then maybe there's a little bit of a game coming back into the fore, but Amoonguss, it's already weak to the Expanding Force, and just looking down the team list here, just having a little double check, it is a Water Terror type, so it doesn't Terra into some of them opt for a dark type Terra, right? To be able to deal with these kind of expanding force combinations, but it ain't that.
It ain't that, and it's also useful to go for Terra Dark when you're trying to get around a taunt, for example, from a prankster Pokemon. But this Iron Crown is seeing into the future and has foreseen the huge damage it's about to do, especially thanks to this Indeedee giving it a helping hand.
Is that seeing into the future? I thought it was time for a disco here.
Well, both. I think it's time to boogie, because certainly this Amoonguss is no longer doing its little mushroom wiggle on the field. I would have assumed that you definitely Terra the Amoonguss there, or at least switch out into something, but perhaps Joris doesn't really have the psychic answers in the back. As we said earlier, the Urshifu style is in fact the Rapid Strike rather than the single strike, so it's not like there's an immunity there either.
Yes.
Right now, Kylian is just running rampant in this game. Trick Room isn't even set up for this poor little Torkoal, and you know what? He's done it before. I can see him doing it again, and now it's single target. There it is. Helping hand, expanding force.
Yeah, the Torkoal's definitely not going to make it to the end of... Well, technically it's made it to the end of the turn without getting knocked out, because Joris has opted to go for the forfeit and protecting the Torkoal there. And I think a wise decision. I think looking at that game one, very clear that if Joris was able to get the Trick Room and maintain it, then he would have been in a great situation. I think Torkoal is one of the main Pokemon that can really threaten Indeedee Iron Crown, both the damage that it does to Indeedee, but also threatening for knockouts on the Iron Crown, makes it think about going for its Terror, and there's always, of course, the Pokemon next to it. So if you have Torkoal and Hatterene going on, well, usually the Iron Crown, and just looking down the team, yeah, of course it's a Psychic type, so it wouldn't be able to make itself resisted, or like if it was a Terra Water, would be able to resist a fire-type move, but then Hatterene comes in with the expanding force and just knocks it out anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that Torkoal in the right position could do something, but well, yeah. I mean, there isn't actually a fire resist over on Kylian's side of the field.
Yeah.
So if you get that nice and position, then there could be a way. But Kylian has proven that they are completely unafraid to just dish out those massive helping hand expanding forces. And I imagine when you're running a team like Kylian's, you go into the matchup and your first question is there a Rillaboom on the other side of the field that could overwrite my terrain? And there isn't. So Kylian has that free pass, so to speak, and it's now down to Joris to try and force him to pay for a ticket.
Well, let's see if Joris can force him to pay this turn around. Amoonguss and Fluttermane coming out for Joris, and the Iron Crown, of course, Indeedee. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Coming out from Kylian. But I do like the adjustment here from Joris. The ability for the Fluttermane to be able to put some offensive pressure onto, well, the Indeedee with the Moonblast, but of course, once you've knocked out the Indeedee or potentially put it to sleep, then you can kind of get at the Iron Crown with a Shadow Ball, and that's going to make a big difference, especially given that it is the Terra Psychic, and so will always be susceptible to that. Unfortunately,
follow me,
but unfortunately, to get to do damage to the Indeedee, you've got to kind of open yourself up to potentially attacking on Cutter, this Fluttermane. So I think it's like, this is the real where the mind games come in. Both of them have redirectors, both of them have good single target damage dealing options, both of them have a little bit of spread option, but it's really down to which way each of the trainers locks in as to how this battle's going to unfold.
Kylian's carried the two, done the calculations and thought, big damage, that's what I want. There's Follow Me to protect that Iron Crown from the Shadow Ball. Of course, Indeedee being part normal type, wouldn't be taking any damage at all from that, and there it is. So very good call from Kylian there. And now this Fluttermane is vulnerable to a Psychic Terror, Psychic Terrain boosted. Expanding Force is not helping hand, but... you don't need it. That's
this is not just ding, this is ding ding.
Yeah, I would go as far as say ding ding ding, Ben. Yeah. That is an entirely healthy Indeedee, an entirely healthy Iron Crown, and 2 Pokemon down for Joris there. Interesting to see Joris attempting to angle for the faster mode, but Indeedee is such a valuable partner for Iron Crown, not just because of setting up the Psychic Terrain. As we've seen, it redirects those Ghost-type moves so wonderfully well.
2 more Pokemon coming in for Joris, and again, they're the Pokemon that you really don't want to be seeing in this scenario. Okay, right. This game went by as quickly as it came.
Yeah.
Right. There's no way around that. Kylian played it absolutely flawlessly.
Yeah.
Based on the moves that Joris picked in, and these are how the mind games sometimes unfold. One player just gets the better end of the stick, and with the amount of damage that Iron Crown and Indeedee can put onto the field, both with Helping Hand, but also that Terra Psychic from the Iron Crown, you could just see why that's effective. If your opponent has a little bit more of a slower team, doesn't have so many of the answers. But I do want to credit Joris.
Yeah.
Because going for the Shadow Ball in that situation is a hard button to press.
Yes, yeah.
And if you're predicting that your opponent's just going to go for a Helping Hand and Expanding Force, or even a Helping Hand Terror Expanding Force, it doesn't matter as long as the Indeedee isn't going for a Follow Me. Shadow Ball actually can sometimes pick up the knockout on Iron Crown, and so I think Joris, even though it didn't work out, put all of the eggs in his basket to be able to have a chance to win that game. Think about what that matchup looks like when the Iron Crown isn't actually on the field anymore, but he's banning force. I mean, it's very quickly a much more even match, right? And
right, exactly.
You've got to give credit to Joris for that.
Yeah, Indeedee based on a Servant, I believe, and then Iron Crown, of course, the Monarch. It's the Monarch that is dishing out those dictums to its helpful butler buddy. And it's fantastic to see a trainer who's so secure with that play style, has been repping it since the beginning. I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's so easy when you're testing out a team to think, oh, it's not working anymore, I'm going to change my team. But just to stick with it and make the adaptations you need, once a play style works for you, that's not something you want to give up easily. You want to make sure you're getting as much out of it as you possibly can. The number of times we hear trainers in interviews saying, well, they just wanted to go for their comfort picks, and it works out so well for them.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing that really works out, I think, is the fact that you turn those 50-50 decisions where if you're not so experienced with the team, you're kind of looking at it and being like, hey, do I Expanding Force? Do I Terra Psychic? Do I Helping Hand? Do I Follow Me in the example of that second game? And when you kind of get down to playing the team for months at a time, you kind of realize, well, okay, well, what can go wrong in this situation? Well, actually, not too much. And if this is the case, it turns a 50-50 into a 55-45, a 60-40, a 70-30 that doesn't look like it. And when you can take advantage of that in competition, when you know what the odds actually look like, as opposed to kind of what it looks like on the surface, your opponent hasn't played too much Iron Crown, then you can really take advantage of that. I think that's what we saw this round as well. It's just Kylian's experience coming through. Calm as a cucumber, collected. And I'm trying to make a pun of Expanding Force, but I'm really struggling right now, Charlie.
Calm as a cucumber, collects as a cucumber, and
expanding his mind.
Expanding his mind. I feel like you just... So, Kylian's gone back to his cabbage patch, and that cucumber is looking healthier than ever. Use maybe a bit of fertilizer in the soil. Let's move on.
We're trying.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see how Kylian adapts in Regulation Set G, whether continuing to use the Indeedee Iron Crown mode or not. And, I mean, think about it. It does very well into Koraidon. And otherwise, you've got to be careful, though, haven't you? Because there's going to be a lot of Miraidon running around in Regulation Set G, and that's going to overwrite the Psychic Terrain.
Potentially. I mean, potentially we'll see how that sort of all shakes out when we get to Regulation Set G, but I'm still stuck in Regulation Set F, Charlie, for just a few more days, and certainly to the end of this mid-season showdown here.
For sure. Speaking of Regulation Set F, F for Factory. We could do a little bit of Battle Factory, perhaps, after we take a little break. A little bit of Emerald Battle Factory, because that game couldn't really have been any faster. So why don't you just grab a drink or something, join us back very shortly, and then, who knows, maybe we'll be playing some Emerald.